Well, that's a great question. And if you remember back in 2016, in the midst of the Republican primaries, Justice Scalia passed away. And so that seat was open. The Republicans were not going to confirm a liberal appointee, and they made that clear. And then so the outcome of the presidential election would determine who would be able to replace Justice Scalia. And so if you look at the modern court, you have Thomas, who is currently the best justice, Alito, who's very close, and then Scalia was in that league too. So that was a really big deal. Honestly, when I was campaigning in 2016 for Trump, there were a lot of conservatives that were like not hot on voting for him because he had a very liberal past. I mean, he had been for gun control, partial birth abortion, all these things. And the thing that I used to get them to come out was the court. I was like, he has a list. He's going to promise to pick off the list and do. And so that was, I don't think, we probably wouldn't have won 2016. I think that was one of the huge motivators for Republicans to come out in that one. We don't see that as clearly right now because there's not a vacancy. But the next president very well may be called upon to replace not only Justice Thomas, but maybe Justice Alito. And those are the two top conservative jurists on the court, and by a pretty considerable distance. So if you look at Donald Trump appointed 3 justices, I think the justices he appointed are good justices. I don't think that there's necessarily a suitor amongst those 3. But if you look at how they've performed, none of them are at the level of Thomas or Alito. So the issue is if you're replacing Clarence Thomas with somebody like Kavanaugh, who's a good judge, that moves the court to the left. If you replace Alito with a Kavanaugh, that moves the court to the left. That's just the reality. So I think as president, I'll be somebody that understands, first, what the proper role of the court is, what the proper way to interpret the Constitution is, but also what makes somebody like a Clarence Thomas and a Sam Alito an exceptional justice. And yes, you got to be smart, but almost any of these guys are going to be smart. You got to have the proper understanding of the Constitution. Everyone will at least give lip service to that. But what you really got to have is the intestinal fortitude and the backbone to apply the Constitution and the law as written when you know that's going to lead to blowback from the media, from the left, from law professors, from the legal profession. And the justices that want to be liked by those people, they're the ones that tend to drift and go to be more liberal over time because that's how you ingratiate yourself. And I think what I like about Clarence and Sam Alito is that they don't care what the media says about them. They don't care what liberal law professors say about them. They have a duty to uphold the Constitution, and that takes precedent over anything of these other matters. So maybe they don't get invited to as many cocktail parties. Maybe they don't get honored at some of these liberal law schools, or if they do show up, they get heckled or whatever. But that's a small price to pay for knowing that you're upholding the liberties of the American people. Because when courts do their job properly, you have more freedom. Your freedoms are more secured. When courts go outside their proper role and legislate from the bench and try to invent law and invent provisions of the Constitution, even if you like a particular political decision, the sum total of that is your freedoms are less secure because our constitutional system is getting out of whack. So I've done court in Florida. I had the most liberal Supreme Court when I became governor. I've made a number of appointments. We now have the most conservative Supreme Court in the entire country. I understand what it takes to make these selections. I am not going to rely on outside groups giving me a list. I'll be consulting with a lot of people, but you know the types of people that you're looking for, and it's approach to the Constitution, aptitude, but backbone. That's really, really important.
I'll just add one thing real quick, which is, I could not agree more. I mean, the 3 justices that President Trump appointed, they're very good justices, but they are not in the same league, in my view, in terms of being able to stand up for us as Clarence Thomas, Sam Alito, as Scalia was. You got the John Roberts kind of influence, the wing, right, the political wing, which is the cocktail circuit wing, which is read the headlines wing. And you want justices who are going to just stare right back at it and do the right thing based on the Constitution and the rule of law. And why does this matter? Because they're going to come after our Second Amendment rights. They're going to decide what free speech looks like, right? There is a member of parliament in Finland who was being prosecuted for daring to say that she believed marriage was between one man and one woman. That's all she said. She just quoted scripture. She was being prosecuted under the law in Finland. That is coming to a theater near you. And the only line between us and that is a Supreme Court willing to stand on the bedrock of the Constitution and be willing to stare down the headlines that'll be written by the press. That's the kind of people that we need, like Clarence Thomas. I will say, as a funny aside, high water mark for me politically, which I will never eclipse, was being in Lukenbach, Texas, which I represent in Central Texas, the famous song, Willie Nelson, with Clarence Thomas, sitting at a bench with a dude strumming a guitar and a chicken and a rooster, and then a couple of bikers coming along going, "Are you Clarence Thomas?" And he looks at him, he goes, "Yeah," and they go, "We love you, man." And it was really the high water mark for me politically.